The superficial front line runs up the entire anterior portion of the body in two lines, from the dorsal surface of the toe phalanges up the leg to the anterior iliac spine, and then from the pubic tubercle up the middle of the body and around the neck to the mastoid process. The line of Holow itself actually wraps around the back of the head, joining the two sides. In their upright position, these two lines work together as one integrated line. For posture, the superficial front line balances the superficial back line. It provides a tensile strength through muscles such as the SCM and rectus abdominis to pull up and support body parts which extend past the line of gravity, so the face, ribs, and the pubis, as well as provide postural extension of the knees. When working properly, efficient breathing is just one of the things promoted by proper posture. Superficial front line is primarily made up of fast-twitch muscle fibers and acts to protect the ventral cavity, throat, etc. by having us instinctively flex forward in threatening situations. Dorsiflexion of the ankle, knee extension, hip and trunk flexion are movement functions of the SFL. In the neck, its action is dependent on the position relative to gravity. So in the upright position, the SEM creates lower cervical flexion as well as upper cervical hyperextension. The superficial front line works with the superficial back line to mediate movement along the sagittal plane. Superficial back line is two lines that run up the back of the body. Its job is to connect and protect the posterior side of the body. It connects from the bottom of the foot to the top of the head in two pieces, one from the plantar surface of the toe phalanges to the condyles of the femur, and then from here up to the supraorbital ridge. Primarily, it mediates movement in the sagittal plane and limits forward movement if functioning properly. As far as postural function, it supports the body in full upright extension, with exception of the knees, which are flexed to the rear. It is able to maintain this all-day posture because it is primarily made up of slow-twitch muscle fibers and heavy-duty bands and sheets of myofascial tissue, such as the Achilles tendon. Movement function of the superficial back line is extension and hyperextension of the body, as well as flexion from the knees down. This line is developed from the time of birth to about 12 months of age, when we gain the strength, balance, and competence to easily maintain an upright posture. I found it interesting that secondary lines, maturity, and vision are all related to the superficial back line. This is the Bielmann spin in figure skating. The next one is the lateral line. It's a bracket on either side of the body, which begins at the base of the foot and runs up the lateral side of the leg. It crisscrosses up and under the shoulders and ends at the mastoid process and occipital ridge. For movement function, a lateral bend in the body is created by the lateral line. We see eversion of the feet, abduction of the hips, as well as lateral flexion of the hips, which is seen in the side bend here. The lateral line also acts as a brake for lateral flexion and rotation of the trunk. In the lateral line, when one side is contracted, the other side is stretched. For postural function, the lateral line balances the body front to back as well bilaterally left to right. It mediates forces among the superficial lines, arm lines, and spiral lines. It also stabilizes the legs when movement of the arms are involved. This is the lateral line, half moon pose in yoga. The next is the spiral line, which is two reverse helixes that wrap around the body, starting at the base of the skull, runs across the opposite side, shoulder, the ribs, and then back to the original side, going across the hip, down the lateral leg, loops under the foot, much like a stirrup, comes up the back of the body, and ends up at the base of the skull again, quite closely to the originating point on the same side of the body. Its postural function is to maintain balance across all three planes and help to determine efficient knee tracking. Its functional movement, according to Thomas Myers, he says, this line is responsible for supporting the trunk and spine with their tone, creating and controlling medial spirals and rotations through the body, as well oblique rotations, and setting the body in isometric and eccentric contraction. This is the spiral line. And then the front and back functional lines are seen here. What's unique about them is that they're referred to as functional because they are rarely employed in regards to standing posture, unlike the other lines. They're primarily engaged in athletic type activities and have strong postural function outside of the regular standing position. They're primarily made up of superficial muscles that are not prone to stiffening or shortening, but a telltale postural compensation for these lines would be the shoulder becoming closer to its contralateral hip, like that, forward or back. As for movement, these lines give us extra power and precision for activities. They are responsible for contralateral counterbalance in every step we take, as well as linking opposite limbs for additional momentum. This is an example of it, and it's the baseball pitch.